So using Band to Streamline. So it's a feature suite for the music directors. You know, we always constantly send out announcements. You're sending out usually an email or maybe on your Facebook group. You're doing shared calendars. You know, many of the apps, Slack is a wonderful app. It's actually an original IRC, Internet Relay Chat, that has a beautiful GUI, graphic user interface. You know, it's what makes it pretty. All right, and it works really good. I took that to a couple of the programs that I was teaching at, and for the life of me, we could not get the calendar to work effectively. So we were constantly using 4 or 5 products all the time. It was super frustrating, and someone was always going, well, which one do we use for that? So it has shared calendars. You can import, export, and sync. Free messaging and group calls. I'll get into this in a little bit. It's actually changed a lot of the things we do. You can share files, images, videos, events, locations. You know, one of the great things about all of that stuff is that everywhere you put it, it is not a public domain. It is a private walled garden. So that means whatever you put out there is only for the people that you put it out there. It is protected. You know what that means? Music rights. You can actually put your performances online through this because it only goes to the people who have it, and you are not running into these issues. You can actually do your run through and not hit that because it's personal only and it's not public domain. It means you can put your scores, you don't want to put full scores, but you can put your music and distribute it to your kids in, you know, through sections so that they don't get a full score and not run into the same issues, or at least prohibit the ability to run into those issues, okay? You have instant feedback. You've got different things like comments, polls, and sign-up features. I've used all these features extensively this year with the Vanguard cadets. It has been really amazing, and hopefully we can get something up. I could show you some of the things that we put up so you have an idea. Excuse me. You have advanced group management. You're able to move things around and change parts. And so the best part of it all, and this is the crazy part, so I had a very, I don't know any of you personally in here yet, but the people who do know me, they know that I'm extremely forward. Like, I'm not trying to be rude, it's the engineer in me, I just don't like gray zone. So when I had my first couple meetings with Band before I implemented it with the Vanguard cadets, one of my first questions was, tell me when you're going to start charging for this. Tell me when you're going to start charging, because everything we do it comes out of our budget. We are constantly being, it's like your apps that you get on your phone. Oh, it's only 99 cents. Yeah, but you have 500 of them. Or it's only $2.99 a year. Yeah, but you know, you got about 40 of those, and then that starts to add up, right? You're paying for these seats. So one of my first questions was asking them, what are you going to charge for this? They said, we don't charge anything for it. And I said, are you sure? They said, yes, it's monetized through Naver. Naver's the Korean search engine. This is just an offshoot. It's literally just to help them get subscribers, and that's no different than what we're used to doing. We're already subscribers, but we're not protected by the sanctity of a walled garden. And I thought that that was pretty cool. So at that point, I started working with them to give them an actual change log that they can use. And they've used many of the things in my change log that I issued to them back in November to make the app more of what it is today. And it makes it more people-friendly for you and me and everybody who's using it. And there's still more changes coming up. So, posts and information. You have a main community board, just like in a Facebook situation or another social media site. You have all information under one post. You actually have the ability to create these posts, and they can get pretty dynamic and pretty detailed. You can actually see who's actually looked at your posts by keeping, and that allows you to keep your members accountable. Well, I didn't see it, Mr. Jones. Oh, you didn't. Shows here you did this. Oh, because as soon as they open that post, there's a little bar at the top, and you can tap on it as an administrator. You can tap on it, and it shows you everybody who's read it and everybody who hasn't read it. You know what's even cooler than that? The people who haven't read it, you can actually tap on that tab. I can show you guys later. You can tap on that tab, and you can say communicate with all these people, and you can send them a private message and say, you need to look at this post. It's kind of information. I mean, it's kind of important. That's kind of cool, because you could separate them without all the extra work of having to pull them up individually. And then the Band app actually keeps reminders for you. So it reminds members what's going on. Anytime you do a calendar thing, it's just like our regular calendars. We could do calendar invites, or you could do calendar alarms, times, certain times before, day of, or turn them off. It works just like any other calendar that you have that works on your phone. And that brings me here. So One of the biggest challenge was getting schedules to kids and schedules to staff. We had to use multiple products in order to pull a calendar. This image of the calendar actually comes off the website. Not only does band work on your phone, but it works off a website, any computer, or even a web browser on your phone. The best experience is definitely through the phone, and that's where most of us are anyways, because let's face it, we are so running around like a chicken with their head cut off. We literally, could you imagine your life without a cell phone today? Think about it. You want to do an experiment to see how important that is? When your kids come into your band room the next time, put a bucket in the side and say, before you come in, everybody put your phone here, and watch them squirm. And you know what's funny? We're no different. We're no different. We live by the red dots on our screen, some of us. And then here's what that calendar looks like on the app. All right, and you can see that there's detail. You can see the daily deals there. You see the dots like a normal calendar. And when they create a calendar entry or an event entry, you can actually put the details in there. You could put you could pull up an address and it automatically maps it for you. So if they pull that up, they can just tap on that. It opens whatever their default mapping is on their devices. You can do RSVPs. I use this one a lot because when you're dealing with volunteers, you want to know who's coming and how it's working. Or maybe you're just putting a post out like it's clean out the whatever cubby you have day and you're trying to get some kids to come in. You can actually say, hey, who could sign up and come help out, Mr. Jones today, Mr. Roberts today. We're going to clean out this and, I'll bring some donuts. No coffee. You're underage. So the RSVPs work very simply. When you set up the event, you can actually tap there. You can share it as a post, reminder, all that kind of stuff's on here. And then when you open the post, this is what it looks like. So this post is actually, you'll see I used hashtags, I'll get into this later. This post actually was local rehearsals, brass only, and the date of the rehearsal, okay, when it was posted up there. And the way that I used the RSVP for the kids, because in drum corps we have kids from all over the country, whereas yours are pretty much right in your area, okay? But what I did is I created it, I needed a solution, so I said if you're local, you need to either join or decline. But if you decline, you need to send me a message telling me why you're not going to be there because you're local. And then if they said maybe, I knew that they were at a distance. So I just didn't have to worry about it. It was just a cognitive way to try to stay organized that way. And you're able to tap on that and actually communicate with everybody in each one of those items. So if you want to talk with all the people who said, join, you're going to tap where it says 44. And when you tap on that, it opens up and you can create a chat through it. Now that only works on the app part, not on the website version, which is why I showed you a screenshot from the app. Calendar importing. I don't think people understand how many calendars that we deal with. It is just nuts. I have my wife's calendar. I have my personal calendar. I have all 5 of my kids' calendars and their school calendars. I have a core calendar. I have a member calendar. I have a volunteer calendar. You guys, right? Everybody's in that same boat. Then on the high school level, you have your AD calendar, which is your facilities, right? Then maybe you have your staff meetings calendars. I mean, we've got like 8 to 10 different calendars if we think about it. So having access to that in one place is also helpful, but you can also separate the ones that are important. So if you want to separate your staff ones and your personal ones, and you can put everything band related into this, you can take it off of other products. So you can take it off of another band, from one band to another if you have multiple bands. You could take it from Outlook or Google or from your Apple, your iPhone, right? You can subscribe or export. Admins is pretty easy. You select the settings in your band's calendar. You're going to end up making sure that at the bottom, you're going to subscribe by URL. This is no different than subscribing to other calendars, right? Or they send you a hyperlink, you click on it and it adds it, right? And then you've got an external calendar URL, you paste it in there. And then what happens is it'll actually start to sync those, all right? If it's external out of band, it syncs every hour. If it's internal within band, it syncs every 30 minutes. I'll tell you what, in the beginning, they didn't have an answer for that. I'm happy to say that was one of the things I drilled them on because I could not physically put something in a calendar, and then here I was for the next 2 hours trying to figure it out, and they finally committed and made the change to where, and this is one of the great things about what they're doing, they're taking feedback from us so that the product can work for us. They made it so that internally, from one band to another band, a calendar, they sync every half hour, and anything external will sync every hour. There is ways you can kind of finagle with it and kind of force it about every 10, 15 minutes, but it'll do it on its own in those time frames. You can also export these calendars. If you want them, maybe you put it in band, but you want to see it on your school calendar that you have at your office. It's very simple. Only the administrator can do this. So, or maybe your parents, instead of opening up the app all the time, they just want to subscribe to whatever updates you push out. You can actually go into the band and you can pull the URL, which is selecting more, export band events, practices. You pick the calendar, I'm sorry, and then you copy the URL. You can actually put that in a post and say, if you would like to subscribe to the entire calendar so that as I update things, your calendar on your phone or your calendar, wherever you want to use this URL, you will have all the information for your kids' band program this season, right? You can actually put it in a post from there. All right, that's super helpful. If you wanted to share this, because you'll have multiple bands, and I'll explain how that works, but for me, I have a staff calendar, then I have a member calendar, and I have a volunteer calendar, I have a costumes calendar, I have a driving calendar, a fleet calendar. There's so many different attributes to what it is that needed to happen. I didn't want them all in one place because I don't want people confused. But you can export them from one band to the other. So in the staff one, I have all of them shared into the staff one so I can see everything that's moving on without confusing the individuals. Chat. It's amazing how kids can talk all day and still have time to chat. It is one of those things. With 4 daughters, I'm telling you, my girls are amazing. They can be carrying on a conversation and texting to the other sister. It blows my mind. I do not have that capability. I can do task switching pretty quick, but to me, they are absolute communication geniuses. With the chat feature here, I left this is kind of a funny one. I intentionally didn't block this out because I think you guys will relate. So this is the chat feature on a website, and this is the chat feature within the mobile application. How many of you have had a kid? Hi, Iceman. Iceman's my nickname in drum corps. The guy next to me was called Meathead, so I was okay with it. Hi, Iceman. One of our pit members has his toiletries, phone, and some clothes stuck in a locker 42 in the boys' locker room. Is there any way we can get that locker open so he can get his stuff? Okay, so this is during pre-tour. So if you're not familiar with drum corps, we go and we lease out like large portions of a school, and we live there. And so obviously, my wife being a PE teacher, I know exactly what happens. At the end of the year, they go through, they open all the lockers, they open them up, and they leave them open usually to prove that they're empty. So I had a kid, stuck his stuff in there, and while he was in the shower, kid came by and just happened to close it, thinking it wasn't locked, and they're combination locks. Now this kid has no clothes, no cell phone, no towel, right? And his friend in the front ensemble, and he's a rookie this year, his first year, is sending me the message about it. So I answer, I looked early, it needs a special key that janitors only probably have. I'll ask tomorrow, please remind. I say, okay, thank you, Iceman. Okay? Kids do funny things. And what's interesting about that is they still found a way to communicate to get the issue, brought to the table, okay? How do you do chat? Creating public and private chats. One of the great parts about what the band offers us is we can have a public chat where it will drive everybody nuts because everybody puts memes and all this kind of stuff all over the chat, and you're one of those. And then there's private chats. Only people who are in those chats can see them, even though they're in the same band. So how do we do that? Well, you go in there and you click on chat. You can choose a little plus sign, and you can choose private or public. Then you go in there and you create, you can choose members you want to add to it. You can start private chat in the band as well. That was obviously in the band itself, because there's a home screen and then there's the band. And this kind of just shows you a simpler way to do it. And then now your private chat is open. Yes?
So I think I just figured this out.
Awesome.
But my question is just making sure that I got this right. In those chats, so as a band director, you don't want underneath your group, you don't want for kids to be able to create their own chat that you can't see, right?
Oh, that'll happen.
So
It's probably better
is
in most
there
cases.
a way that you can cut off their ability to create a private chat that you can't see?
Yes. You can make it so that they cannot create public chats. Actually, the private chats, I don't think so. I think I still have my kids doing private chats, and I'm okay with it because, when something comes up, I know. You find out someone's like, oh, there's something going on. But the public chats, you can block that from happening. Okay, it's an excellent question. I haven't had any issues with the private ones other than the other kids start muting them because there's too much chaos and communication. Like it's just random. Yeah, it's random stuff. Yeah, it's kid stuff. It's fun, but when you have 150 of them doing it, it's not fun, right? Keeps you up at night. Group calling. So I talked a little bit about this earlier. I was really excited about this. I didn't realize it. There was a couple things that I did this year with the Vanguard cadets. If you're not familiar with Vanguard organization, they implemented the Energy Bus last year, and all the members were required to read it, and it was about creating teamwork and a team environment. It has absolutely changed the culture of what we do. This year, I took it a step further. I created a curriculum around it, and we had what was called a round table. We picked 12 kids that we thought could be influential, that were well-mannered and were willing to be taught. They weren't necessarily section leaders. They were just a secret group of 12 kids, and we put them through that curriculum. It was really awesome because we were able to communicate with them in the process, put them through it, and then they were able to bleed throughout the organization. But how it relates to group calling is once a week after we got through a certain lesson, we would actually have a conference call, a conference call. And we were able to do it through the band app without having each other's phone numbers. So 2 directors, an admin staff, and 12 kids on one call that was free. That was really cool. So it's really easy. You go into whatever chat it is that you have, whether it's private or public, and then you go in there and you can, on the settings in the bottom or up in the top, it's in 2 ways to get it. You'll tap on group call, and then the notification will go out. It'll blink red on the top of the screen and say join call. And then now it'll let you start entering. So as you start entering, you'll see, I'm going to get to this part in a second. As they start entering, you see the little circles pop up. Now, I thought there might be a limit, but I had 32 people on one call. I thought that was kind of cool. And it was free, as long as they have data. It has to use data. So if they're on Wi-Fi, that's a free gig. All right. Also, what I thought was really cool is while we were doing the calls with this round table, I was able to minimize that talk chat and go into band and in the rest of my phone while I was talking with them and pull up things that we were talking about through other apps or my notes or the actual posts that we were discussing it that week. All right? And that's what this talks about. It says you can do other things while talking to members via the group call. It allows you to minimize that. So you're able to fully functional multitask while you're on those calls. You can utilize the calls hands-free, speakerphone access. You just tap on, you can mute it, all right? And when you're done, you just tap the big red oval that says leave, right? No, it doesn't mean the person you don't want to talk to is going to leave. It means you leave, right? Next thing, managing files. We can send out emails or do whatever we want to do, but file management gets really difficult. You get updates. If you're doing custom suite stuff, you've got version 1.1, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4, and so managing those files can be very daunting. I do have a couple of tips later that would help with that, alleviate and simplify that. But in this case here, Band has made managing the files really simple. How many of you guys use Slack? So in Slack, you know how we can go and find all of our files, right? You can go and see any file that's ever been posted, you can see it there. This allows you, and it manages all your files. And it manages your files by that band. One of the challenges I have with Slack is it just puts them all in there. And this one here, if I know it's music for kids, or if I know it's dots for kids, or if I know it's, whatever, I know they're in that band, I can go there and I can immediately pull up only the files that pertain to them, so I'm not scrolling through a multitude of different products. It's really simple. You tap on what's called a hamburger menu in Tech World. Then it takes you over to this screen, and then you'll see where it says View Files. You'll view all files. And then You'll take you right to where all your documents are. It'll show a PDF, an Excel, a PowerPoint, those types of things. It doesn't show videos, only Word, Excel type and PDFs type of stuff. Obviously, pictures is in there, ping files, and from there you can actually, let's say like this image release form, which we probably all signed when we signed up for this, right? And so you can show that post. If you tap it, you show that post. It'll open the post that you've created where that's at. Or you can open that file directly from here without opening it, or you can save it to other apps. Maybe you want to push it out to PDF Plus or Adobe software or something if it's a PDF file. So they've actually made it fairly simple. Group management. What's really cool is like you still want to help delegate some things. So you can have if you're a director, maybe you have an assistant director, or you're co-directing, or I use drum majors a lot. So personally, my drum majors are the most I thank them all the time, but they're the thankless, hardest working, quietest position. They're not just barking at people. That's actually, it doesn't work in the core for us. But they are co-admins. I use them to help manage some of this, and they check with me on everything. All right. You can actually assign multiple co-admins, and then you can assign duties by the different type of membership that they have the ability to do. Maybe they can't do a post. Maybe they can't respond to a post to keep all the comments down. Maybe there's just different things you can limit. Then you can schedule posts, with your management stuff. You can create a post and then have it not post until tomorrow. Matter of fact, this was opening weekend for us, so I had 4 competitions in the last 4 days. I took a red eye last night after my last one, got here at like 5:30 in the morning, got here at like 7 in the morning. I slept for about an hour and a half after talking with my buddy Peter here from band, and then I've been up kind of getting ready for this today. And I had already scheduled ahead of time all the next 4 days of scheduling, and they won't post until about 1 a.m. at that time. Okay, so you can schedule your posts. I thought that was very convenient. That's a relatively new ad. You can manage your notifications. I'll get into this a little bit more later, but trust me, when you get all the kids doing their thing and you have multiple bands and multiple adults and volunteers, it could notification. Like, how many of you shut notifications off your social media already? Yeah, no, I mean, you know what I mean? It goes off all night, your Twitter or your Facebook, all the time. There's ways to manage that. And statistics. This one I wasn't too sure about using in the beginning, but I think it's pretty cool because you can see what age groups, you can see what category, male, female, you can see who's using what products the most, and it shows it in pie graphs and scales so you can get an idea of how effective your communication is. I started doing this with my parents, not my parent band, not my own parents, but I started doing it with that because I wanted to see what was pinging, like what was getting their attention. How could I get them to respond? So for the last 11 years, the Vanguard Cadets has had a total of 3 to 5 to 7 people who were volunteering for the season. That's really, really super difficult to have that many people. We started using band, and I started playing with the statistics a little bit. We have 62 volunteers this year with the same amount of parents. And it is all because we figured out how to get into the mind of those people and get them the information. What we find is that a lot of parents, they don't know that the opportunity is even there. By giving them the opportunity, you'll find that they want to help. And the statistics will teach you, once you understand how they work, where you need to work in order to maybe be more effective with our communication. It's really kind of cool. I was surprised it was in there.